Old buildings often have personalities. Creaks and groans become familiar sighs, rattling pipes a comforting nocturnal rhythm. But sometimes that personality feels less like quaint character and more like sentience, or perhaps malice. Alex learned this distinction firsthand during a late-night elevator ride in the slightly decaying, vaguely Art Deco high-rise apartment building, where he rented a small studio on the 14th floor. The building's 2 elevators were notoriously temperamental. They shuddered on ascent, jolted unexpectedly between floors, and occasionally emitted disconcerting grinding noises. Residents often joked about their unreliability, sharing stories of minor entrapments or doors refusing to open. Just quirky old building problems, everyone assumed. Alex usually took the stairs down, but that evening he was running late to meet friends and opted for the dubious convenience of the elevator. He pressed the down button in the dimly lit 14th floor lobby, the mechanism groaning somewhere deep within the building's bowels. After a longer than usual wait, the arrow above one set of doors finally illuminated, and the tarnished brass doors slid open with a protesting shudder, revealing the small, wood-paneled interior of the lift car. It wasn't empty. Standing silently in the back corner, almost blending into the shadows, was a woman. She was small, elderly, dressed in what looked like clothes from another era. A dark, high-necked dress, sturdy lace-up boots, and a wide-brimmed, old-fashioned black hat that obscured most of her face. She clutched a worn, black leather handbag tightly in both hands, held rigidly in front of her. She didn't look up as Alex entered, didn't acknowledge his presence at all. Feeling slightly awkward, Alex offered a polite nod towards her silent form, then turned and pressed the button for the ground floor, G. The button lit up dutifully. The doors slid shut with another groan, enclosing them in the small, vibrating space. The air inside felt stale, heavy. The elevator began its descent, accompanied by the usual cacophony of creaks, rattles, and groans from the cables and machinery. Floor 14, floor 13, floor 12. The indicator lights above the door tracked their progress. Alex leaned against the side wall, scrolling idly through his phone, trying to ignore the slightly unnerving presence of the silent old woman in the corner. Floor 11, floor 10. Then, something strange happened. The elevator gave a small, unexpected jolt, and the light for the 8th floor suddenly illuminated, bright and steady, even though neither Alex nor the woman had pressed it. Alex frowned, glancing at the panel. Maybe someone on the 8th floor had called it. The elevator slowed and stopped smoothly at 8. The doors groaned open. The 8th floor hallway was empty, dimly lit by a single flickering fluorescent tube. Silent. No one waiting to get on. No reason for the stop. After a long, pregnant pause, during which the old woman in the corner remained utterly motionless, the doors slid shut again with a sigh. The elevator resumed its descent. Floor 7. Floor 6. Okay, that was weird. Alex tucked his phone into his pocket, now paying closer attention. He glanced nervously towards the old woman. She hadn't moved. Still facing forward, head slightly bowed under the wide hat brim, clutching her handbag. Was she even aware the elevator had stopped? Then the light for the 4th floor lit up. Again, unbidden. Alex stared at the glowing button, a prickle of genuine unease tracing its way up his spine. This wasn't just a glitch. The elevator stopped. Doors opened. Another empty, silent hallway, this one even dimmer than the 8th. The silence felt heavy, watchful. Again, after a pause that felt deliberate, the doors slid shut. Floor 3, floor 2. Alex's heart was starting to pound now. He just wanted out. He kept his eyes fixed on the indicator panel, praying the G would light up next, praying the doors would actually open this time. Finally. G. The light glowed. The elevator slowed its descent, shuddered slightly, and came to a complete stop at the ground floor. Relief washed over Alex. He stepped towards the doors, ready to push past them the second they opened. But they didn't open. He waited. 1 second, 2, 5. The doors remained stubbornly closed. The elevator sat motionless, silent except for the low hum of its internal mechanics. Confused, annoyed, Alex pressed the door open button, the one shaped like opposing arrows. Nothing happened. The button didn't even light up. He pressed it again, harder, jabbing at it repeatedly. Still nothing. He glanced back, exasperated, towards the old woman, intending to ask if she knew what was wrong. Excuse me?" he started, his voice sounding tight, slightly high-pitched with nascent panic. "Do you know what's going on? Is this thing stuck again?" The old woman didn't answer, didn't move, didn't even seem to register his presence. She remained a silent, shadowy figure in the back corner, clutching her handbag, head bowed. Panic began to bubble in Alex's chest. He started hitting the buttons randomly now. G, door open, the alarm button, shaped like a bell. None of them responded. The panel was dead. The elevator was dead. They were trapped in a rattling metal box, deep in the bowels of the old building, with a silent, unnerving old woman. "Ma'am?" Alex tried again, turning fully towards her now, his voice shaking slightly. "We need to call for help. Do you have a phone? Mine doesn't have service down here." And that's when she finally moved. Not quickly, but slowly, deliberately, like an ancient clockwork mechanism winding into motion. She lifted her head, tilted it upwards, so her face emerged from the deep shadow cast by the wide brim of her hat. Alex stifled a gasp. Her skin was like old parchment, stretched thin and dry over sharp, prominent cheekbones. Her eyes, milky white and pupilless, stared blankly ahead, seeing nothing, or perhaps seeing everything. They looked like the eyes of a porcelain doll left too long in the sun. And her lips, thin and pale and cracked, slowly, impossibly, stretched into a horrifyingly wide, unnatural smile. A rictus grin that didn't belong on any human face. She lifted one hand then, slowly, arthritically. Her fingers were like long, bony twigs, tipped with yellowed nails, and with one trembling skeletal finger she pointed. Not at Alex, not at the dead control panel, but straight down, at the floor of the elevator car, and she whispered, her voice like the crackle of dry ice, like scraping stone, a sound that clawed its way into Alex's very soul. "Ground floor." The moment the words left her lips, the elevator gave a sudden, violent lurch. Not up or down, but downwards in a way that felt fundamentally wrong, as if the floor itself had simply detached, dropped away beneath their feet. Alex screamed, a raw sound of pure terror, flailing his arms as he felt himself plunging into darkness. The single light bulb overhead flickered violently, then extinguished, plunging the car into absolute, suffocating blackness. The only thing remaining was the echo of the old woman's chilling whisper and the horrifying sensation of falling into an abyss that had opened beneath the ground floor. Alex's friends reported him missing the next day when he never showed up and didn't answer his phone. Building maintenance found the elevator stalled between the first floor and the basement level, empty. There was no sign of Alex nor of any elderly woman. His phone was later found lying on the floor of the elevator car, screen cracked, battery dead. On the dusty floor beside it, someone had traced a single, shaky word in the grime with their finger: down. The elevator was put back into service after a thorough inspection revealed no mechanical faults. But some residents still claim that late at night, it sometimes stops at floors no one has selected. And they always take the stairs. Most high-rise buildings are meticulously planned, every floor numbered, every button leading to a designated space. But in the oldest structures, the ones that have seen generations come and go, sometimes anomalies exist, forgotten spaces, unmarked destinations. This is what a young woman named Lisa discovered one rainy evening in the grand, slightly decaying Emerson Tower, where she had just started a new job. Lisa worked on the 27th floor. It was her third day, and she was still navigating the labyrinthine corridors and the bank of 6 identical, ornate brass elevators in the main lobby. That evening, heading home, she pressed the call button. An elevator arrived quickly, its doors sighing open. It was empty. She stepped inside, pressed L for lobby, and leaned back, tired. The descent was smooth. 27, 26, 25. Then, just as it passed the 15th floor, the elevator gave a slight, almost imperceptible shudder. The lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. But when Lisa glanced at the floor indicator, it was dark, and all the floor buttons on the panel, including her L, had gone dim. All except one. It was a small, round, unmarked button, set slightly below the main panel, almost hidden in the shadows of the ornate brasswork. A button she could have sworn hadn't been there before. It glowed with a faint, pulsing blue light. Confused, slightly unnerved, Lisa tried pressing L again. Nothing. Door open. Nothing. The elevator continued its silent, smooth descent, but without any indication of what floor they were approaching. Only the blue button pulsed like a beckoning eye in the dim car. What was it? An emergency stop she hadn't known about? A service level? Hesitantly, seeing no other option as the elevator continued its mysterious journey downwards, Lisa reached out and pressed the glowing blue button. The elevator stopped almost instantly, with a soft hiss that was entirely different from its usual mechanical clunks. The doors slid open. Lisa stared out into nothingness, or rather, not a floor, not a lobby, but what looked like an unfinished raw space. Concrete walls, exposed pipes, and ductwork snaking across a low ceiling, the air thick with the smell of dust, damp concrete, and something else, a faint metallic tang, like old blood. There were no lights, only the dim spill from the elevator car illuminating a few feet of rough floor. And silence. A profound, absolute silence that seemed to swallow sound. A cold dread washed over her. This wasn't a service level. This wasn't on any building plan she'd ever seen. Where was she? Then, from the depths of the darkness beyond the reach of the elevator light, she heard it. A faint rhythmic sound, scrape, drag, getting closer, and a soft, almost inaudible whimpering, like a small animal in pain. Lisa didn't wait to see what was making the noise. She slammed her hand repeatedly on the door close button. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. The scraping, dragging sound grew louder, closer. Then, with agonizing slowness, the doors began to slide shut. The blue light on the unmarked button flickering erratically before finally extinguishing as the doors sealed. The normal elevator lights flickered back on. The floor indicator re-illuminated, showing L. The elevator gave a familiar jolt and resumed its descent, as if nothing had happened. It stopped at the lobby. Doors opened. The familiar bustle of people leaving work, the bright lights, the scent of rain from outside. Everything normal. Lisa practically fell out of the elevator, her heart pounding, her skin clammy. She didn't look back. She didn't tell anyone. Who would believe her story of an unmarked button and a secret, terrifying floor of darkness? She quit her job at the Emerson Tower the following week, citing personal reasons. She never found out what that blue button led to, or what made those scraping sounds in the darkness. She doesn't want to know. But sometimes when she's in an old elevator, she finds herself scanning the control panel nervously, her eyes searching for any small, unmarked button, glowing faintly in the shadows, offering a silent invitation to a floor that shouldn't exist, and she always takes the stairs if she can. The email arrived late on a Tuesday, an urgent summons from Mr. Abernathy, the notoriously eccentric head of archival acquisitions at the city's oldest and arguably creepiest private museum. Liam, a junior archivist barely 6 months into the job, knew better than to ignore such a summons, no matter the hour. Mr. Abernathy's urgent often meant mildly interesting artifact found in a dusty crate. But insubordination was not a career booster. The museum was a Gothic monstrosity downtown, usually closed to the public by 5 p.m. Liam arrived around 9 p.m., the streets slick with rain, the building looming dark and silent against the bruised night sky. The main doors were locked, of course, but Abernathy had left instructions for the night security guard, a weary-looking man named Sal, to expect him. Sal, who looked like he'd seen too many nights in too many quiet buildings, grunted a greeting and pointed towards the ancient, cage-style service elevator tucked away in a shadowy alcove off the main hall. Mr. A is up in the rare manuscripts vault, 5th floor. That old birdcage is the only one still running this late. Watch your step. Liam had always hated that elevator. It was an original fixture from the early 1900s, all creaking ironwork and flickering bare bulbs, with a heavy concertina gate you had to pull shut yourself. It moved with agonizing slowness, accompanied by groans and shudders that suggested imminent mechanical failure. He stepped inside the cramped car, the air smelling faintly of dust, old metal, and something else. A faint, almost chemical tang he couldn't quite place. He pulled the clanking metal gate shut and pressed the worn brass button labeled 5. The button didn't light up. He pressed it again, harder. Nothing. Damned thing, Liam muttered, jiggling the button. Sal had already disappeared back into his security booth. He tried the other floor buttons. 4, 3, 2, L, lobby. None of them responded. The elevator was completely dead, or so he thought. Just as he was about to pry the gate open and shout for Sal, one button, previously unnoticed, hidden slightly beneath the main panel and unlabeled, suddenly glowed with a faint, sickly yellow light. It wasn't a normal button. It was just a small, smooth, dark circle, almost like a polished stone, set directly into the metal wall of the elevator. And it was pulsing softly, rhythmically, like a faint heartbeat. Liam stared at it, confused. He'd never seen it before. Was it an emergency override, a maintenance call? Hesitantly, seeing no other option, he reached out and pressed the glowing circle once. The effect was instantaneous and deeply unsettling. The sickly yellow light intensified for a moment, then extinguished. The elevator didn't lurch or groan into motion. Instead, a profound silence fell, so absolute it felt like the air had been sucked out of the car. Even the distant hum of the city outside, the sound of the rain against the museum roof, all of it vanished. It was as if the elevator car had been detached from reality, suspended in a void. Then, very slowly, with an unnerving smoothness that was entirely alien to its usual rattling progress, the elevator began to move. Not up, not down. The floor indicator lights above the gate remained dark, unlit. It felt more like a sideways slide, a shift into something else. The weak bulb overhead flickered violently, then died, plunging Liam into absolute, suffocating darkness. He fumbled for his phone, his heart hammering against his ribs, but the screen remained blank, unresponsive. Dead. Panic began to claw at him. "Sal?" he shouted, his voice sounding thin, absorbed by the oppressive blackness. "Mr. Abernathy?" No response. The strange, smooth, sideways movement continued for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only a minute or two. Then, with another almost imperceptible jolt, it stopped. For a long moment, nothing happened. Just the thick, cloying darkness and the sound of Liam's own ragged breathing. Then, he heard it. A soft click. The sound of the concertina gate on the other side of the elevator car. The side that should have been a solid metal wall, being slowly, deliberately unlatched. Liam froze, every muscle tensed, straining his eyes against the impenetrable black. He could hear the faint scrape of the metal gate sliding open. A gust of cold, damp air, carrying a strange, sweet, cloying scent. Stronger now, almost like overripe flowers mixed with something metallic, wafted into the car. A figure appeared in the newly opened doorway, silhouetted against a faint, almost invisible luminescence that seemed to emanate from whatever lay beyond. It was tall, unnaturally thin, its limbs elongated, its movements fluid, almost insectile. It didn't speak, it just stood there, a darker shadow against the faint glow, watching him. Liam couldn't make out any features, but he felt its gaze, cold and ancient and utterly alien, boring into him. He wanted to scream, to run, but he was paralyzed, rooted to the spot by a terror so profound it stole his breath, his will. The figure slowly raised one long, thin arm, beckoning him forward with a single, slender finger, inviting him out into the faint, glowing unknown. What lay beyond that doorway? Liam didn't know. He didn't want to know. Every instinct screamed at him to stay in the relative, if terrifying, familiarity of the dark elevator car. He never found out what Mr. Abernathy wanted that night. When Sal, the security guard, went looking for him an hour later, after Abernathy called down, wondering where his archivist was, he found the service elevator empty, cold, and completely unresponsive, stalled between floors. Liam was gone, vanished without a trace from inside a locked metal box. The police investigated. The museum conducted its own search. They found nothing. No sign of forced entry into the elevator shaft. No sign of malfunction beyond its usual decrepitude. Liam Holloway simply ceased to exist within the walls of the old museum. Mr. Abernathy, when questioned, claimed he'd never actually summoned Liam that night, that the email must have been a misunderstanding, or perhaps a prank. He seemed genuinely distressed by Liam's disappearance. The service elevator was eventually decommissioned, deemed too unreliable, too unsafe. It sits now, a silent, rusted cage gathering dust in its dark shaft. But sometimes, late-shift security guards report hearing strange noises coming from its vicinity. A faint, sickly yellow light pulsing from within the sealed-off alcove. And a soft, almost inaudible click, like an old gate being unlatched, inviting someone, anyone, to press the unlabeled button once more. Inviting them to take a ride to a floor that isn't on any blueprint, a floor from which no one ever seems to return.